They told you that aging would feel like a slow fade. That one day you'd wake up and not recognize the person in the mirror, not because of wrinkles or gray hair, but because something deeper had gone missing. The fire, the sharpness, the spark. They said that after 60, you should expect to feel tired, numb, a little less alive every year. But what they didn't say, what they never said, is how quiet that loss would be. No big dramatic moment, just a gradual dimming. First, it's the mornings. You wake up feeling a little heavier. Not sleepy dash, just dulled. Then comes the disconnect from your partner, your own body, your own sense of desire. It's subtle at first. You stop initiating things. You start telling yourself it's just age. Normal, inevitable, and then you start believing it. But I'm here to tell you, as someone who's spent a lifetime in this field, they lie to you. My name is Dr. James Walker. I'm a retired physician with over 30 years in men's health, though I've worked with women just as often. And I've seen this lie destroy people's spirits more times than I can count. I've sat across from strong, intelligent adults who once built families, careers, entire lives, and who now sit slumped in their chairs, whispering words like, "I guess this is just how it is now. It doesn't have to be." You see, what no one tells you is that the body doesn't just collapse at 60. It doesn't give up. It listens, and it waits. It waits for you to feed it something real, not pills. Not promises, presence, nourishment, attention. But that's the part that's been stolen from you, the belief that it's even possible. Somewhere along the way, society decided that your vitality had an expiration date, that your closeness with your partner would dry up, that your energy would fade, that intimacy would become a memory, not a moment, and you were told to accept it. I won't let you accept that, because I've seen men in their 70s light up again. I've seen women in their late 60s rediscover joy not just in their bodies, but in their lives. I've seen laughter return to quiet homes. I've seen hands reach for one another again after years of silence. And none of it came from hormone injections or miracle supplements or weekend retreats. It came from something far more ordinary. Let me ask you a question. What if the thing that could bring you back to life wasn't new at all? What if it was already in your refrigerator? I know that sounds ridiculous, but listen to me. After 3 decades of treating patients, what changed everything wasn't the breakthroughs in pharmaceuticals. It wasn't tech. It wasn't money. It was a tiny shift in what people believed about aging, and in what they were willing to try. Something as small, as familiar, as overlooked as an egg. That's right, a simple egg. The very thing you've seen 1,000 times and never once thought could be part of your healing. But I'm going to show you how it can be, and why it works. And why, when used with care and intention, it can reignite something that many people over 60 believe is gone for good. But before we go there, I want to ask you something even more important. Have you already given up on the idea that you can still feel alive? Because if you have, then everything I say will sound foolish. And if you haven't, if even a small quiet voice inside you is still curious, then I want to invite you to stay. Just a little longer. Give me this moment. I promise you, what comes next could change how you live the rest of your life. But I can't do this alone. If you believe in what we're building here, real, honest conversations about aging, health, connection, then help us grow this space. Click subscribe. Tap the bell. Support this message so that others, just like you, can hear it too. Because you are not alone in this, and your story may help someone else believe again. Now, before we move into the next part, I want to leave you with a question. Think carefully about it, not with your head, but with your heart. Then drop your answer in the comments. Which belief has shaped your health more over the last 10 years? A. Aging means decline, and there's no way around it. B. Aging means change, but growth and vitality are still possible. Type A or B in the comments. Don't overthink it. Just respond from where you are right now. Because what you believe today is the foundation of what you'll feel tomorrow. And in just a moment, I'll show you how something as small as an egg can help you rewrite that future from the inside out. When I first started practicing medicine in the early 1980s, there was a widespread belief, almost a superstition, that certain foods were either good or bad, black or white, healthy or dangerous. And at the center of that controversy was a simple, everyday item, the egg. I remember how patients would come into my office terrified of cholesterol numbers. The media had painted eggs as a villain, a small, round capsule of dietary doom. And for years, Even we in the medical field repeated the same warnings: avoid eggs, stick to egg whites, use replacements. But decades later, science and time have taught us a far more nuanced and far more beautiful truth. As a doctor who has walked alongside thousands of patients through every season of life, I want to tell you something plainly. We were wrong about eggs. Not just scientifically, but spiritually, emotionally, and culturally. Because when you strip away the old fear and look again with honest eyes, what you find is not a threat but a gift. You see, eggs are not just food. Not really. Not when you're over 60 and your body is quietly craving something nourishing, real, and complete. What makes eggs so remarkable isn't just their nutritional profile, it's the way they speak to the very systems in your body that age tends to quiet down: hormones, circulation, memory, energy, and yes, intimacy too. One egg contains a constellation of nutrients your body needs urgently, especially now. Choline, for instance, supports brain health and helps maintain communication between nerve cells. Most people don't realize how much their foggy thinking or emotional flatness might be connected to a choline deficiency. But the brain knows, and it responds to this humble gift. Vitamin D is another. As we age, our ability to synthesize vitamin D through sunlight decreases, especially for those who live in colder climates or stay indoors more often. Vitamin D plays a critical role in maintaining bone density, but it also helps regulate mood, energy, and even hormone production. A deficiency doesn't just weaken the skeleton, it erodes the spirit. Yet one egg, naturally sourced, quietly brings that sunlight back to your plate. Then there's B12, another silent hero. With age, your body's ability to absorb this vitamin diminishes. B12 is essential for red blood cell production, nerve function, and mental clarity. If you've been feeling slower lately, not just physically, but emotionally, it's not all in your head. Sometimes it's in your plate. Or rather, missing from it. But perhaps the most elegant gift within an egg is something called L-arginine, an amino acid that the body uses to produce nitric oxide. That might sound technical, but stay with me. Nitric oxide is the molecule that helps blood vessels relax and expand. It improves circulation. It's the reason your hands feel warmer, your heart beats steadier, and yes, your intimacy returns with more strength and responsiveness. For men, it supports firmness and performance. For women, it encourages blood flow to areas that enhance sensitivity and comfort. This isn't about chasing youth, it's about reclaiming function, reclaiming connection. What strikes me most about eggs is not just their biochemical power, it's their humility. They don't arrive in shiny packaging or with grand marketing campaigns. They sit quietly in your refrigerator, waiting, affordable, familiar, often ignored. But when approached with new intention, they become something else entirely. A quiet medicine, a ritual of repair. I've often told my patients that healing doesn't always come with fanfare. It doesn't always involve a prescription or a lab test. Sometimes healing begins with remembering what your body has always needed and offering it again. Without noise, without force, with care, and that's what eggs do. Not because they're trendy or miraculous, but because they are honest. They work in harmony with your body, not against it. They support what's already there, waiting to awaken. I've watched people begin their morning with 2 soft-boiled eggs and return weeks later with brighter eyes and steadier voices. They didn't expect much, but their bodies did. Their bodies recognized the nourishment. And they responded not with fireworks, but with clarity, warmth, stability, subtle, yes but profound. If you're over 60, I need you to understand something. Your body is still adaptable, still intelligent, still capable of responding. But it needs tools that are real, digestible, and trustworthy. Eggs offer that. They don't shout. They don't pretend. They simply offer themselves, again and again, every morning, every meal, if you'll let them. And let me be clear, this isn't about eating more. It's about eating right. With intention, with rhythm, with love for the vessel that's carried you through decades of life. I want you to imagine for just a moment what it would be like to wake up and feel nourished, not just full, to feel sharper, not jittery, to feel grounded, not groggy. That's what eggs, prepared the right way, can begin to offer. They are not a fix. They are not a cure, but they are a beginning. In my years as a physician, I've learned that some of the most powerful transformations happen in silence, in repetition, in trust. An egg is not just more than breakfast. It is a reminder. A small act of care that whispers to your cells, you're still worth feeding well. And I can tell you, after all this time, your body is still listening, even now, even today. Even if you've forgotten what it feels like to be nourished, truly nourished from the inside out. So tomorrow, when you walk into your kitchen and reach for something quick or empty or processed, I want you to pause. I want you to remember what you've just heard. And I want you to consider giving yourself the smallest, simplest gift. One egg, cooked gently, eaten slowly, chosen with care. It's not just breakfast, it's a message. And your body is waiting to hear it. When I was a young doctor, I used to think that health was all about what people ate. Carbohydrates, proteins, vitamins, checklists, and numbers. But decades of sitting across from patients, hearing their stories, watching their faces change as they describe their exhaustion or their loneliness, taught me something far deeper. It's not just about what you eat. It's about how you eat it. And that difference, subtle as it may seem, often separates decline from renewal. I've seen people spend fortunes on supplements, exotic superfoods, and tightly structured meal plans and still feel empty, not because they were doing something wrong nutritionally, but because the act of eating had become disconnected from any sense of care, presence, or meaning. It was just another task, another obligation, something to rush through or distract from with a screen. But your body, especially as it grows older, is no longer impressed by efficiency. It doesn't respond to noise or multitasking or rushed mornings. It responds to rhythm, to softness, to intention. And when you begin to approach your meals as moments of healing rather than hurried necessity, everything starts to change. Let me tell you what I mean. When I suggest eating eggs to my older patients, I'm not simply prescribing nutrients. I'm inviting them to rediscover the morning. I'm inviting them to reclaim a part of the day that often slips away unnoticed. Because the way we begin our morning matters more than we realize. It sets the tone not only for our energy, but for how we relate to ourselves. So when you wake up, I don't want you to reach for your phone. I don't want you to start reading the news or checking your schedule before your feet even touch the ground. I want you to walk slowly to the kitchen. I want you to put a pot of water on the stove. I want you to hear it begin to simmer. And I want you to choose 2 eggs, whole, untouched, yolk and all, and place them gently into the pot. No microwave. No plastic tray. No rush. Just you and the morning and this small act of care. Boiled eggs. Simple, yes. But boiled with patience. With quiet, maybe while looking out the window. Maybe while breathing slowly. Maybe while remembering, just for a moment, that you are still here. That this body, though older, still wakes, still digests, still feels hunger, and still deserves attention. Food prepared with gentleness communicates something powerful to the nervous system. It says, I am not under threat. I am safe. I am valued. That's not sentimentality, it's biology. The human body digests more efficiently, regulates hormones more smoothly, and absorbs nutrients more effectively when we are calm and present. And nothing brings calm like a ritual. Now, once those eggs are done, I want you to sit down. Not at your desk, not in the car, at a table. No television. No scrolling, just you and the plate. Add a handful of green spinach, arugula, whatever you like. Maybe a slice of avocado if you have it, maybe a sprinkle of sea salt. And then eat, slowly, without judgment, without guilt, without needing to prove anything. You are not eating to fix yourself. You are eating to remember yourself. This, my friends, is what I've come to call nutritional mindfulness, and it's not a trendy phrase. It's a truth that aging reveals. That the way you care for yourself becomes more important than how much you do. That presence has more power than perfection. There is something deeply human about pausing in the morning to prepare food with your own hands. It reminds you that you are capable, that you are worth your time, that even in a culture obsessed with productivity and youth, there is immense strength in slowing down and being deliberate. I had a patient once, Robert, a widower in his late 60s. He told me he hadn't cooked for himself in over a year. What's the point? He said. It's just me now. He'd been eating toast and coffee every morning, standing at the counter, staring at his phone. He didn't realize how much that ritual, or lack of one, was reinforcing his own sense of loss. So we made a small change. I asked him to boil 2 eggs every morning, nothing else. Just that one change, but I asked him to sit while he ate them, to breathe, to chew, to listen to music if he wanted, to remember that his body was still alive. 3 weeks later, he came into my office with tears in his eyes. "I feel like I'm waking up again," he said. "Not just in the morning, in my life." That's the power of how, when we treat the act of eating as sacred, even if it's just 10 minutes, it begins to transform the relationship we have with our bodies. Food becomes more than fuel. It becomes care. It becomes a signal to our cells, to our spirit, that we are still here and still trying. Now, I'm not asking you to become a gourmet chef. I'm not asking for rules or strict routines. I'm asking you to consider that perhaps the smallest, most accessible part of your day, your breakfast, could become the most powerful medicine you take. Not because of what's on the plate alone, but because of how you choose to receive it. When you prepare food slowly, eat it mindfully, and do so with consistency, your body doesn't just survive, it begins to respond. In subtle ways at first: better sleep, a steadier mood, warmer hands, clearer thoughts. Then, gradually, something even deeper. A return of self-respect, a quiet pride. A sense that you are no longer neglecting the parts of you that once felt forgotten. So tomorrow, don't just eat. Ritualize it. Reclaim it. Turn your meal into a moment. Not for anyone else. Not to fix what's broken. But to whisper gently to your body, "I'm still here, and I still believe in you." Over the years, I've come to realize something about healing that I never learned in medical school. It's not linear. It's not predictable. And it certainly doesn't always come from a prescription pad. In fact, some of the most powerful moments I've witnessed in my entire medical career didn't come from medication or machines. They came from something quieter, something more personal. They came from ordinary people making small, consistent choices that changed everything. Let me tell you about Harold. He was 72 when he first walked into my office, shoulders slumped, voice tired, like a man carrying the weight of something he couldn't name. He wasn't sick in the traditional sense. His labs were acceptable. His heart was steady, but something in him had gone dim. He told me mornings were the hardest. "I wake up and it's like I'm already exhausted," he said. "Not just physically, but emotionally. I feel like I'm watching my life instead of living it." He spoke about his wife with love, but there was distance in the way he described her, like they had grown comfortable in a silence that neither of them knew how to break. No arguments, no conflict. Just absence. He didn't ask for a diagnosis. He wasn't looking for medication. He came because he needed something to shift, anything. And so, I did not reach for my stethoscope. I reached for something much simpler. I suggested a routine, a ritual. 2 soft-boiled eggs in the morning, eaten slowly, with intention. I asked him to sit down at the table. No phone, no television. Just himself, a quiet room, and something nourishing. I asked him to do it not for results, but for remembrance. To remember what it feels like to begin the day by caring for himself. 3 weeks later, Harold returned. And I knew something had shifted before he said a word. His posture was lighter, his gaze clearer. He told me something unexpected. "We're talking again, holding hands on our walks, laughing at the little things." I didn't realize how far I'd drifted, not just from her, but from myself. That's the part most people don't talk about, how we don't lose intimacy overnight. We lose it in layers, in distractions, in neglect, in the slow erosion of presence, but the body remembers. It remembers how to feel, how to desire, how to connect. It just needs a reason to come back to life. And sometimes that reason is as small as a quiet meal eaten without distraction. Then there's Martha. Martha was 68, a retired music teacher from Oregon. She'd come to see me about hormone imbalance, but what she really wanted to talk about was the pain of not feeling like herself anymore. Her words were delicate, careful. "It's not that I don't love my partner," she told me. "It's that I don't feel like a woman anymore. I don't feel present in my own skin." She had tried creams, pills, even therapy. But nothing seemed to bring back the warmth she once knew, the warmth not just of touch, but of identity. I asked her to try something unusual, not to fix anything, but to create something. A moment, a small window each morning just for her. I told her to prepare a breakfast with her hands. 2 eggs, whole. Maybe add some color to the table, a napkin, a flower, a song she used to play. I asked her to treat that moment as if she were preparing breakfast for someone she loved deeply. And that someone was herself. 6 weeks later, she came back with a story. She had started wearing earrings again. She had painted her nails. She bought a bright yellow sweater. "I don't know if it's the eggs," she said, laughing. "But I'm saying yes to things again. and my partner. He noticed. We both did. Those are the stories that stay with me. Not because they're dramatic, but because they're real. Quiet revolutions born from care. From the radical act of choosing to tend to yourself, even when the world has told you it no longer matters. As a doctor, I was trained to look for data. But no lab test can measure the first time a man looks in the mirror and sees brightness where there was once apathy. No prescription can replicate the smile of a woman who feels seen again, not by others, but by herself. Healing, I've learned, often begins in the smallest places: a bowl, a spoon, a plate. A choice repeated day after day until something long asleep begins to stir, and what stirs is not just physical. It's something older, wiser, something that says, I remember who I was. And I want to feel like that again, not in the past, but in the present. That's what I mean when I say the body still remembers. Even if you've been through illness, grief, loneliness, or long stretches of neglect, your body holds a deeper intelligence than you realize. It's not demanding perfection. It's simply asking for your attention, and when you offer it, it will surprise you. You may feel warmth return to your hands, clarity to your thoughts, steadiness in your breath. You may find yourself walking more, reaching out more, laughing more. You may remember, in subtle waves, what it means to be connected to your partner, your family, your own skin. So if you're reading this and thinking, it's too late for me, I want you to know, I've seen too much to believe that. I've seen people in their 80s come alive again. I've seen tears fall not from sorrow, but from the joy of rediscovery. Not because they were chasing youth, but because they were reclaiming presence. You don't need a revolution. You need a return to warmth, to rhythm, to nourishment, to the body that has carried you this far and is still willing to walk with you if you meet it halfway. And sometimes all it takes is 2 eggs, a quiet morning, and the courage to begin again. There's a particular kind of silence I've seen settle between couples after a certain age. It's not the silence of comfort or even of peace. It's the silence of distance, the quiet that forms when touch becomes rare, when laughter fades into politeness, and when what was once a spark becomes a flicker. And for many of the patients I've seen over the decades, that silence is the most painful part of aging. Not the aches, not the forgetfulness, not even the fatigue. It's the slow erosion of intimacy. As a doctor, I've had hundreds of conversations that never show up in medical records. Men in their 60s whispering that they feel invisible to their wives. Women in their 70s saying they haven't felt desirable in years. And always, there's a tremor of shame, as if wanting closeness after 60 were somehow foolish. But let me be clear, it's not foolish, it's deeply human. We are built for connection. Not just in our youth, not just in moments of romance, but across our entire lives. The desire to be touched, seen, held, heard, none of that fades, because a calendar says you've passed a certain age. What fades is our belief that it's still possible, and that is what I want to challenge. It is not too late. In fact, for many of us, this stage of life is the first time we are truly free to explore intimacy for what it was always meant to be. Not performance, not pressure, but presence. Not something to prove, but something to share. One of the greatest misconceptions about aging is that intimacy becomes irrelevant. But what I've learned, what I've witnessed firsthand, is that intimacy becomes more meaningful as we age, not less. Because when you've lived through decades of joy and loss, of raising children, of caretaking, of illness, of change, you come to understand the depth of what it means to simply hold another human being. You begin to value the quiet moments, the shared looks, the stillness. But to feel those things again, to return to them with your partner, or even with yourself, you must begin by returning to your body. I've spoken before about nourishment and presence, about rhythm and ritual. But what I haven't said yet, and what needs saying now, is this: intimacy is not a light switch. It doesn't come back because you want it to. It comes back when your body feels safe enough to open again. For men, that means circulation. Not just for function, but for confidence. Blood flow is not just a mechanical issue, it's emotional. When blood moves freely, so does life. When it slows, so does feeling. So when we restore blood flow, we're not just helping the body, we're inviting the heart back to the surface. For women, it means hormone support, warmth, sensitivity. But beyond the biology, it means feeling seen. Feeling like someone still notices, that they're not fading, that they still matter. And that requires more than a pill or a program. It requires presence, tenderness, a willingness to say, "You're still beautiful to me," And, perhaps more importantly, I want to feel beautiful for myself. This is why I've become so passionate about the small changes that lead to big transformations. Because what I've seen, over and over again, is that when a person begins to care for their body with intention, even something as small as preparing breakfast, walking each morning, or breathing more deeply before a meal, their relationship with themselves begins to shift. They carry themselves differently. They make eye contact longer. They smile more. And slowly, the distance between two people begins to close. Intimacy is not always about what happens in the bedroom. Often, it starts in the kitchen, in the way you hold a cup of tea, in the way you greet your partner at the table, in the way you pause to say, "Tell me how you're really doing." These are the seeds. And when planted consistently, they'd bloom into something that might have felt impossible just months before. I remember a couple, Diane and Frank, married for 42 years. They came to see me not because of a medical emergency, but because they felt like strangers living in the same house. Frank had retired. Diane was recovering from surgery. They weren't fighting. They simply we-e-r-e-n single quotes connecting. They ate in silence. Slept on opposite sides of the bed. Said "I love you" out of habit, not feeling. I asked them to start with one simple act. Prepare breakfast together 3 times a week. Not fancy. Just eggs, toast, and a few quiet minutes with no distractions. It sounded trivial, almost laughable. But they agreed. A month later, Frank walked into my office and said something I'll never forget. We're not young again. But something softened between us. We're touching more, talking more. I don't know what happened, but I feel like I have my wife back. That, to me, is the miracle of real intimacy. It doesn't come with fireworks. It comes with tenderness. With the decision to reach again, even when it feels awkward at first. With the courage to say, "I miss you," even to someone you see every day. And I want you to know, wherever you are in your journey, that this is still available to you. You are not too old to feel wanted. You are not too old to feel alive in your own body. You are not too old to fall back in love with your partner, with your life, with yourself. Intimacy after 60 is not a relic. It is a rediscovery. It is a slower, deeper, more sacred unfolding of what it means to be close. It may look different than it did in your 30s, but it is no less powerful. So take the hand beside you. Or, if there is no hand, take your own. Begin with that. Begin with breakfast. Begin with breathing. Begin with caring enough to ask, what might it feel like to love again? Gently, honestly, fully. It's not too late. It never was. As a doctor who has walked beside thousands of patients through decades of life's changes, I've come to understand something that textbooks never taught me. Healing isn't always loud. It's not always found in prescriptions, surgeries, or technology. Often, healing shows up quietly, in a moment of presence, in a gentle morning, in a small meal cooked with intention. What begins as a simple act of nourishment becomes a doorway to something far deeper, a return to connection, to identity, and to self-respect. In this series, I've spoken about the power of small rituals like preparing and eating eggs mindfully. It may seem insignificant, even silly to some, but for many of the patients I've worked with, this act became the seed of transformation. Because after 60, what the body craves most isn't novelty, it's attention. What the spirit longs for isn't youth, it's dignity. And when we stop chasing extremes and start honoring the ordinary, something beautiful begins to awaken. I've seen men rediscover confidence not because of some pill, but because they started walking again, head up, eyes clear after just a few weeks of nourishing their mornings. I've seen women blossom in their 70s simply by saying yes to themselves again, yes to presence, yes to preparation, yes to joy. These changes aren't theoretical, they're real. And they remind us that it is never too late to return to ourselves. The truth is, the body doesn't forget. It remembers how to thrive, it remembers desire. It remembers vitality. All it needs is a signal, small but consistent, that it's safe to come alive again. That signal can be as humble as 2 eggs on a plate. What matters most is not the food, but the message it carries. I still matter, I am still here, and I still care. If you've been feeling distant from yourself or from the people you love, I urge you not to wait for some dramatic turning point. Start small. Start with what's available to you right now. Prepare your next meal with care. Sit down without distractions. Breathe. Let your body feel what it means to be supported again. Let your spirit feel what it means to be chosen by you. And remember, this journey is not about perfection. It's about remembering that even in the quietest moments, healing is possible. Intimacy is possible. Joy is possible. All it takes is the willingness to begin again, not as who you were, but as who you are now. The lesson is simple yet profound. Your body and soul are still capable of thriving, even after years of silence. Don't let age, fear, or fatigue convince you otherwise. Life may have slowed down, but it hasn't stopped. And within that slowness lies your chance to rediscover something sacred, the power of presence, the strength of gentleness, and the beauty of caring for yourself with intention. So here's a gentle question for you to reflect on. What's one small ritual you could start tomorrow to bring more care and connection into your life? A. Preparing and eating breakfast without distractions. B. Taking a 10-minute walk in silence each morning. Please type A or B in the comments below. I'd love to hear what speaks to you. Your answer might inspire someone else to begin their own quiet healing. And if this message has touched you, if you've found even a little hope or clarity here, please consider subscribing to this channel. It helps us grow and reach others who need this message. If you feel called to support this work further, any donation, no matter how small, will go directly toward helping us create more content like this, gentle, healing, and real. As someone who's now retired, I don't do this for income. I do it because I still believe in the value of care, in the power of community, and in the wisdom we carry as we age. Thank you for being here. And thank you for listening.